the Practicing Baby Taoist, and in this series, I ask questions that ask if we are leaving the world in a better place than when we got it. And based on whatever our answer is to that, is that something that we want to continue doing because it's making us and everybody around us better? Or is it something that we want to talk about? Is there an opportunity for change? So, what happened this week is I haven't been watching this Kroger Albertsons merger. It's a merger that is going to take, it's a debate if it's the second largest and third largest or fourth largest and fifth largest grocery store chains and combine them into one huge grocery store chain. And there's always that discussion of those types of mergers. Are they ever in the best interest of the end consumer? And, history says no. Are they in the best interest of the management team? Usually, yeah, pretty good for the management team. But what caught my attention was Bob Ferguson is an attorney general in Washington State, and he had filed a lawsuit to stop the $4 billion dividend payment that Alberts was going to give to its shareholders right before the merger. And so I was like, wow, that's weird. Why would he be concerned about that? Why is that a deal for him? And because, corporations have the right to declare dividends. So I thought, let me go out and see. I mean, it's unusual to hear that it's such a large dividend. It's almost $7 a share. That's insane. And it's unusual that it's happening right before a merger. Mergers usually don't like losing assets. So I thought I'd go out and see what's the deal here. So let's look at Albertsons, because Kroger's going to buy Albertsons. And in 2007, I think it was, 2007, there's a capital management group, Cerberus Capital Management, and Cerberus Capital Management acquired Albertsons in 2006, it was, for $350 million. And they had acquired that grocery store chain because they wanted the real estate. Cerberus Capital Management. That's the name. And do you know who Cerberus is? Cerberus is like that three-headed hound in Greek mythology that protects the gates to Hades. So it protects the gates to hell. Scariest hound ever. Scares me. I don't want to have anything to do with Cerberus. But Cerberus, that dog makes sure that whatever gets in doesn't come back out. There's a $350 million investment. And they also were able to put a couple of their senior management on the board at Albertsons. So let's look. We are 17 years later or so, and they have found a way to sell themselves to Kroger. And there's a lot of discussion on antitrust. And because with this merger, there is going to be only one grocery store chain. They are going to be a monopoly in a lot of areas. So where I live, Kroger, there used to be Fred Meyer's, Safeway, and Albertsons. And Kroger now will own all of those. So Kroger first bought Fred Meyer's, and then Albertsons bought Safeway, and now Kroger is going to buy Albertson. So those three grocery stores that competed against each other are now under one umbrella, and that usually is not in the best interest of you, the consumer, or you, the employee working for this monopoly. But what was the deal with this $4 billion payment? I mean, it was really, really a weird payment. And what was weird, what made this even weirder is when I looked into it, dividends are paid from profits. So if there's a huge profit, then you say to your shareholders, thank you for sticking with us. I'm going to share with you some of our profits. That's not where these dividends are coming from. So every corporation is going to save money, right? It's like you and me, we have a bank account where we have a savings account where we save money for a rainy day. That's not excess cash that we go and we play with, right? It's money that we save for if our car breaks down, or if the heater breaks down, or if our kids need something, or if we have a medical bill. That's what a savings account is. And in corporate America, those are called capital reserves. Well, of this $4 billion, $2.5 billion of it is going to come from the savings account, not from profits, not from the company doing really well and being profitable. It's from what the company has been saving to ensure that they will stay viable and that the employees will have a job and that we will have groceries on the shelves. And then the other 1.7 billion, is the other 1 point something billion is going to come from taking out a loan. So that has absolutely nothing to do with profits whatsoever. In fact, that has to do with giving money that the company doesn't have. So that would be like you taking your credit card to go out and have a great time. But let's make this statement even worse. Let's say that you are on the bleeding edge of bills. You just have all sorts of bills and you have no extra money whatsoever. And what you do is you go out and you get a new credit card and you go and max it. And, that just makes your problem worse. When I looked at where these dividends were coming from, they weren't coming from profits. They weren't coming from money that was excess money that wasn't there for anything. They were coming from their savings. And then what they did is they went out and got a credit card. And, if it was you and me, it would be considered an irresponsible credit card. And the banks were irresponsible in loaning that money to us. But they went out and got a credit card to blow the rest of it. Okay, so why would Kroger go for that? Because basically what they're doing is they're raiding the corporate balance sheet. So I had to look into that a little bit, because they offered a certain amount of money for the stocks of Kroger, of Albertsons. And what they did on that purchase price is they said, hey, this is what we're offering you, but what we're going to do is we're going to reduce that money. So if we're, let's see what Kroger buyout price of Albertson, $34 a share, $34.10 a share. So it's $24.6 billion that they agreed to pay for Albertsons. And what they said is that they would reduce the cost, the payout per share by this dividend. So this dividend is actually like a cash payout, but it's a cash payout from Albertsons and not from Kroger. So it's Albertsons paying themselves to sell themselves to Kroger. And so why the state attorney general filed a lawsuit is because this was going to put Albertsons in a much weaker position financially. So let's say we're not done with saying that these guys can merge, right? There still has to go through an antitrust thing. And if you're in any of the areas where Albertson, Safeway, Fred Meyer's exist, what that means is that now you don't have competition. You only will have this one. So there's a risk on the antitrust suit, right? But if Albertsons is in a financially weak position that they cannot continue being an ongoing concern, then, it doesn't matter that this is going to create a monopoly, because then it will save other jobs, right? It will save the jobs. So Kroger's allowing the management team to take this huge dividend because it will significantly financially weaken Albertsons. Now, here's the thing that's really bizarre about this. They are allowing Albertsons to raid the coffers. And let's go back to Cerberus Capital Management. They acquired Albertsons in 2006, and they still own a third of all the shares of Albertson. So this is like an insane windfall. They invested $350 million 15 years ago, and now they're going to make $7-8 billion off of that investment. That's a huge gain. That's a huge turnaround for them. And to make it even better, is a third of that is going to be in cash. So $4 billion will be in cash. So that's going to be pure profit. $350 million investment, $4 billion in cash, and then the other $4 billion in shares. Okay. Now, what really caught my attention, because, in general, I go, yeah, corporations can pay out dividends, but this isn't really a dividend that they're paying, right? It's not from profits. They're raiding their savings, and then they're going out and getting as many credit cards as they can, and they're going to spend it all. Hey, okay, do you remember reading about certain divorces where one partner went because they were pissed off about the divorce, and they went and they grabbed as many credit cards, they opened up as many credit cards as they could, and they just maxed it all so that the other partner would be stuck with all this debt. It was a vengeance thing. What makes this even worse is that Albertsons is a union shop, and they have a retirement plan. $4.7 billion of that retirement plan is currently unfunded, and they are going to allow Cerberus Capital Management to take this all out and pay it to themselves. Is that something you and I can do, where we owe all this money and the bank comes in and says, you don't have to pay back any of your creditors with this money we give you. You can keep it all for yourself, and you can go blow it and have a great time. Hey, take a vacation or something. Just have as much fun as you can. So, yeah, no, banks don't do that. But here's my real question. Is this the right behavior? Are we doing the right thing? Now Cerberus, that's the dog out of Hades that says, hey, whatever comes in here can't come out. And is that what we want to portray in this world? Because if that's what this means, if it means that, hey, it's important for me to take as much money as I possibly can and completely ignore the fact that I must not have been doing a really good job of managing this whole thing, because there's $4.7 billion that's unfunded in retirement accounts. And that's a big deal, right? Because we have just ended the biggest blow up of the stock market in our whole lifetime. There was so much money going into the stock market that all you had to do was spit, and you would make huge profits. And yet, for Albertsons and their retirement accounts, they are $4.7 billion underwater. Now, Cerberus Capital Management is this huge investment firm that's supposed to be able to protect everybody's investments from leaving, and yet $4.7 billion of Albertsons union employees retirement fund is somehow not funded. Okay, so those are just questions that I had when I looked at this. And I wouldn't even have asked it, except I was curious about why did the state attorney general, Bob Ferguson, file a lawsuit to stop the payout of the dividend? Not even to stop the merger, to stop the payout of the dividend. Why was that done? And, this is what I found when I looked into it. Now, that payout was allowed to go forward by Washington state courts. And California had filed a lawsuit of similar concern in the federal courts. The federal courts also refused to hear it. So, I don't know. For me, I'm wondering, is this really how we want to treat each other? Is this really the world that we want to create? And, this isn't the end of the question, because you might not remember this, but I think it was back in 2007, United Healthcare, they were having a problem with their CEO, and they finally were able to get him to leave. But in order to get him to leave, his retirement package was $1 billion. That's insane. It's a health insurance. It's our health insurance. So if you're wondering why your rates are so high, I'm just going to point to that and say, well, that might have something to do with it. And that caused a lot of frustration and aggravation for just you and me, the regular consumer. And it took a year for them to come back, and finally, through litigation, they got about $650 million of that $1 billion back. So he still walked away with $450 million for doing a crappy job of being a CEO. So here's another question. Is this the world that we want to create? And is this okay, allowing a small capital management group to really raid a corporation and sell it and walk away with all the monies, leaving it in financial straits, and also leaving all the employees who have invested their money in the company, invested the money in their retirement plan, leaving all of that exposed and at risk? So, I mean, how many employees is that? How many employees does Albertsons have? Albertsons has approximately 300,000 employees. So are we doing the right thing here by allowing 300,000 employees to be at risk because a small group wanted to raid the financial stores before the merger? I don't know. I think that's a question that we're going to have to start asking ourselves. And if it's not what we want to do, if we don't think that's the world we want to create, and here's the other thing. There's going to be a lot of these stores that are going to get closed down, right? Because they're only going to want one store in each location. So a lot of employees are at risk of losing their jobs also. So losing their jobs, losing their retirement. Is that the world that we want to continue to create? And so if it isn't, and if it isn't the world that we want to create, then we can change that, right? Just by asking these questions, we can change that, because by asking these questions, we start opening up dialogue on, is this the right thing? And ignoring the issues of greed, ignoring the issues of these capital management firms and how much control they have over the market, ignoring all of that. Just this issue of $4.7 billion unfunded liabilities in the employee's retirement plan. Is that even, is it okay to let this capital management firm walk away with all the money and leave the employees with an unfunded retirement plan? Is it okay for this small capital management team to take about how much they need to fund this pension plan and walk away? So if it isn't, start asking the questions. Start getting involved in the dialogue, because it might not feel like it, but you actually can make a difference. And I have faith in you, and I have faith in me, and together we can think about it, and we can think, hey, if this isn't the world that we want to create, let's start asking the questions now, because if you start asking the questions, people have to start thinking about it and thinking about change.